Now, welcome to another weekend ramble, where this time, what's our topic?
This is like our last conversation pre-Skeleton Crew about what are our hopes, what are our fears, what do we think?
Expectations.
Expectations.
Maybe? Yeah.
I think because of their marketing, they've set my expectations a lot lower than I wanted them to be.
Wow, really?
Yes.
I would say that the marketing has been heavily skewed in two directions. At nostalgia, like this is the Goonies again. It's even that commercial they put out the other day, like it had like the '80s vibe to it, which is cool. I'm not dissing it. It's fine.
I swear I've heard that music in a production before. My brain hasn't figured it out yet.
And they are going heavily towards kids.
Yes.
And it's kind of funny. It feels very gimmicky, which, again, that's not a problem in and of itself. But I think what that brings up is, why doesn't Star Wars in itself sell? Why do you have to kind of get very gimmicky and try to say, hey, look, really, this is going to be something you remember from your childhood. You can watch it with your kids. Like, shouldn't that almost be, like, not necessarily implied, but shouldn't Star Wars be able to sell Star Wars?
I agree with that statement. And I do find it disappointing that like you said, it is very gimmicky. They're like, hey, guess what? There's going to be Easter eggs and stuff from the holiday special and from the Ewoks and from Captain EO from the old Disney parks. You know, Lucas worked on that too.
Yeah, which again, in and of itself, not bad, but it seems to be very much sold on what it is. You know, this kind of filler fluff stuff. I don't know what you want to call it. Like, oh, it's going to have cool Easter eggs and callbacks. And it's like, I like that stuff as someone who's going to hopefully, probably catch a lot of it. That's cool, sure. But, like, is this actually going to be a good show?
I mean, it depends a little on the definition of what you think a good show is.
That's fair.
Is it something you're just watching for, like, strictly pure enjoyment to go, I just want to watch this, have a good half hour of time,
minutes,
enjoy myself, and move on to the next thing, which I think is kind of what almost Agatha went for in a way. It was a little more, it had that intrigue and stuff and everything, but it wasn't, like, it's not like a silo where you're like, I want to be invested and I want my brain to sit there for hours later and puzzle out all the solutions that we could come up with for this.
Yeah, clearly, and I don't think you have to dumb things down necessarily for children. I think that's sometimes used as a kind of a cop-out or an excuse, like, oh, it's for kids, so it doesn't have to be that good. I think that's a terrible excuse. We should expect more from kids. But anyway, I do feel like, since it is being heavily marketed towards kids, which is initially not what they said was going to be the case. They said this was more for adults. I think my expectations are kind of lower. Like, oh, they're really just kind of going to turn this into like a fun, quote-unquote show. You just, like you said, you watch it for a half hour. You don't really sit there and ponder any deeper meanings or what's coming next. It's probably going to be very predictable, but hopefully enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to sit down and say, hey, look, I had a good time watching this show. Which is, it's going to be hard to do because Star Wars, unfortunately, has been building itself a bad reputation for, things that should have swung out of the park. Obi-Wan turned into a mess. How do you do that? There was a Legends book that was perfectly acceptable to base the story off of.
No, they don't like to do that sort of thing.
But it was acceptable to do that. There was an outline to go, hey, people love this book from the Legends. We could do something in a similar vein or try and tell a more closed-up story like they did here. And instead, they're like, no, he needs to explore the galaxy, and let's bring in Bail and Leia and Luke.
Yeah.
Why?
Because
there was no expectations for you to do that. It wasn't necessary. If you want to have him leave the planet, okay, you could do that, I suppose, if he's got a really good reason.
Leia is a quote-unquote really good reason.
Yes, but she shouldn't have been the reason because they shouldn't have had to come into contact. There needed to be another reason. Like maybe he was spotted and had to chase a spy off-planet who was going to rat him out to the Empire.
Yeah.
Or like some sort of reason he had to. So I feel like shows that they should have knocked out of the park, they've flopped.
I've said it before, they screw up the shows they need to get right in the movies.
Yeah. So is this one actually going to be good because there's zero expectations of it going to be good?
I don't know. I mean, it is an interesting question why they seem so reluctant to lean into Legends. I mean, that's another topic entirely, but something worth, again, noting there because you brought it up. But I think my hope is that it's good. Obviously, it's enjoyable. I'm not expecting this to be Andor-esque or The Empire Strikes Back version 2.0 or anything along those lines. I'm hoping it's more benign at the very worst, where it's like, I sat there and I watched it and it was all right. It didn't really ruin anything. It's not bad. It's just is what it is. Which, again, we should expect more out of Star Wars, I feel like. It should be the premier franchise. And that's why I don't think many people are going to watch this, to be honest with you. it's going to be like a fluff show. And you can go watch Penguin or Silo or any other number of shows that are just better than it.
It's like they didn't know where the audience was going to be here. Because let's face it, Disney, they know at this point how to write stuff for kids. That's what they've built their branding on, is being family-friendly, kids.
Kid-centric entertainment.
I mean, they just came out with Moana 2, which I've heard has done phenomenal in the theater, despite not being, in reviewers' opinions, as good as the first one.
Wicked, too, has been really good.
Wicked's been doing well in the theater as well. They know how to write. You know, they know what they're doing, but then when they hit Star Wars, they go, I don't know what we're doing. It's like they can't handle a genre that they didn't create themselves so much.
Yeah, but they have so much material they could lean into. You bring up the Kenobi book. You didn't have to word for word that into a series, but you could have looked at that and said, there's something there. There's something interesting about that character in this book, even though it's really not even about Obi-Wan so much.
He doesn't seem like, he's not the main character for most of it. Yeah. But how it's handled is very well done.
It's very good, which is almost the way to go with something. And you could say, well, Reva was the main character. And I get the joke there, but in a way, if you would have done something like that, the Kenobi series really isn't about Kenobi, but still manages to have him in there and be a profound story about him. I think that almost works better. It's about him
finding his worth outside of the Jedi Order being gone, finding himself again, his place, rather than just existing.
Yes, instead of just, I'm going to sit on this planet until I can train the boy, I can still be a Jedi in a manner. I can still help people and do something.
Helping somebody else find their dreams and saving a little community and doing the right things.
It's a good book.
It is a good book. It was a surprise, to be sure.
But, I had to. I can't not say it.
But as for Skeleton Crew, for a company that prides itself on family-friendly, kid-friendly entertainment, I feel like they can't mess this up, because this is beyond just being like, well, we're writing Star Wars. This is the Disney bread and butter, ABCs. Yeah. Disney knows how to do this part. Yeah, so if they mess this up, that is crazy. Yeah, it's almost impossible.
It might be really good. I don't mean to sound pessimistic. It's just I've been, we take, because we obviously keep up with everything, and if you listen to us, you're doing pretty much the same.
Yeah.
But you add all the things up you've heard over the last however long, and you look at how long it got delayed, and you're like, well, why was it delayed? Were there these problems behind the scenes? Like, is it a mess that they didn't know what to do with? And at first they thought they had a Stranger Things on their hands and we're going to lean into that, an adult audience. And they're like, well, that ain't going to work. So let's just make it for kids. But it could have worked.
They could have. It's like they couldn't stick the landing. Here's what we have. Here's a general outline of what we have. And then they're like, well, what is it? What is it? What is it going to be? And they couldn't figure out the genre, so I probably just went off the rails all over the place. Yeah. And like, I guess let's stick it in the family-friendly, kid-oriented, and just dumb it down or something.
Yeah, that sounds like,
I don't know.
That sounds insane.
I'm worried.
Yeah, it sounds insane to think that you could film the entire thing and look at it and go, I don't even know what genre this is supposed to be in. Is this for kids or what are we?
For?
Yeah.
I thought it was supposed to be for nostalgia, 80s kids who... Because we kept comparing it to the Goonies, we kept comparing it to Stranger Things. We compared it to Indiana Jones at one point. And like, you're hitting the 80s kids.
Yeah.
The kids who wanted them, because Stranger Things goes after the 80s kids.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if you're going after the 80s kids, it's not exactly a kid show.
Yeah, not that Goonies or Indiana Jones can appeal to kids today, but again, they originally said this was, don't be confused. This isn't for kids. This is for adults, and it has kids. And then it's like, well, it's for kids. So we kind of screwed it up, and we had to adjust. So, and that's not like a bad thing. I'm not mad that they would make a Star Wars show for kids. And if I sit there and I watch it and I go, you know what, this really isn't like for me. This isn't for adult me. But I think kids are really enjoying this. This might really be something kids can get into, and they're going to love Star Wars. Cool. That's awesome. That would be a win, not for Thor, who just likes to watch Star Wars for himself, but a win for Star Wars and bringing in a new generation. And if that happens, cool. But if it's just bad and kids don't watch it and adults are like, it was kind of blah, like that's, they can't afford another loss, I feel like, even though they have hopefully a big win with Andor next.
Yes.
All right, I think that's going to be all we got for you this time. Now it is your turn. Take to the comments below. Your turn to tell us your hopes, fears, expectations for Skeleton Crew. Are you excited for this? Do you think it's just going to be a kids show? Whatever you think, leave a comment below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.